The sun rises over Oyin Village, painting the sky in soft hues of orange. Birds chirp as smoke rises from thatched huts. A young girl, Aduni, walks barefoot along the narrow path leading to the river, balancing a clay pot on her head. She moves quickly, knowing that any delay will result in punishment. As she reaches home, her stepmother, Iyasewa, stands at the entrance, arms crossed, eyes burning with impatience. Without warning, she snatches the pot from Aduni's head and pours the water on her. "Lazy girl, you took your time, eh? You want to become a queen while I do all the work in this house?" she spits, her voice laced with venom. Aduni stood up, swallowing the lump in her throat. Before she can respond, Iyasewa shoves a broom into her hands. "No food until the whole house is spotless," she barks before storming inside.
As Aduni bends to sweep, her father, Baba Aduni, trudges into the compound, his shoulders heavy with exhaustion. He barely acknowledges her as he drops his hoe and sighs. "Is there food?" he asks wearily.
Iyasewa, now lounging on a wooden stool, clicks her tongue. "Food? Ask your useless daughter. She does nothing all day but eat." Aduni lowers her head and keeps sweeping. She has learned that silence is her only protection. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months. Each morning before dawn, Aduni rises to fetch water, cook, and clean. She eats last, if there's anything left. Her body is weary, but her mind remains sharp. At school, she listens intently, scribbling notes in a worn-out notebook while other students whisper and giggle. She ignores them, focusing only on the words of Mr. Femi, her teacher, who notices her dedication. After class, he pulls her aside, concern etched on his face. "Aduni, you are brilliant. Have you thought about university?" he asked, watching her carefully. She hesitates, gripping her notebook tightly. "University? Iyasewa will never allow it. She says I was born to suffer." Mr. Femi shakes his head, sighing. "Take these books, study whenever you can. Your future is in your hands." That night, under the dim glow of a lantern, Aduni flips through the pages, whispering formulas and essays to herself. Each word she reads feels like a step closer to freedom. She knows that education is her only escape, and she clings to it with everything she has. Weeks pass, and the day of the WAEC exams arrives. Aduni walks into the exam hall, gripping her pen tightly, determination etched on her face. Around her, other students chat nervously, but she tunes them out, focusing only on the questions in front of her. With each paper she writes, she feels the weight of her struggles, but she pushes through. She remembers studying in secret, stealing moments of learning between chores, and forcing herself to focus even when hunger gnawed at her stomach. Months later, the results are released. At school, a crowd of students gathers around the notice board, pointing at names, screaming with excitement or groaning in disappointment. Aduni fights her way through the crowd, her heart pounding in her chest. Her eyes scan the list, moving from one name to the next until she finds it. Aduni Adebayo, 7 A's, 2 B's. A gasp escapes her lips. She stares at the board, barely believing it. The whispers around her grow. She passed. Aduni got distinctions. That girl is a genius. Tears well up in her eyes as she clutches the paper. For the first time, she allows herself to dream beyond the walls of her stepmother's house. But another challenge awaits, JAMB. Without money for the exam fee, her dreams could end here.
Desperation sets in as she walks home, her mind racing with ideas. That night, after finishing her chores, she approaches her father cautiously. "Baba, I need to register for JAMB, but I have no money."
Baba Aduni sighed heavily, running a rough hand over his face. "I wish I could help my daughter, but there is nothing." From across the room, Iyasewa scoffs. "So you want us to sell the house because of your foolish dreams?" she taunts. Aduni swallows her anger and leaves, determined to find a way. The next morning, she takes a bold step. She visits Mama Titi, the village food seller, and offers to help wash plates, sweep the shop, and run errands in exchange for money. For weeks, she works tirelessly, scrubbing pots and carrying heavy baskets of food. Some days she returns home late, exhausted and sore, only to be met with more chores from Iyasewa. But she does not stop. Finally, after weeks of hard labor, she counts the crumpled notes in her hands. It is just enough. She registers for JAMB. The day of the exam arrives. Sitting in the hall, she takes a deep breath and focuses. The questions are tough, but she is tougher. When the results are released, Aduni quickly goes to the nearest JAMB center to pick up her result slip. Her heart races as she checks her score. The numbers are real, 265. She has done it. She has met the cutoff mark for university admission. A mix of relief and excitement washes over her. She has done it. But just as she begins to celebrate, reality hits. How will she tell Iyasiwa? And more importantly, how will she convince them to let her go? Aduni rushes into the house, waving the letter in excitement. "Baba, I got into university." Before Baba Aduni can react, Iyasiwa snatches the letter from her hands. Her eyes scan the words before she bursts into bitter laughter. "University? Over my dead body. You are going nowhere." With a flick of her wrist, she tosses the letter into a burning fire. Aduni screamed, diving forward to rescue what she could. Her hands tremble as she pulls out the half-burnt remains, tears streaming down her face. "You have treated me like dirt, but I refuse to be buried," she cries, her voice shaking with defiance. "I will go." For the first time, Baba Aduni lifts his head, his voice steady. "Iyasiwa, enough. I have been blind, but no more. Aduni, you will go." Despite Iyasiwa's protest, Baba Aduni sells his only goat to pay for Aduni's journey. Dressed in simple but neat clothes, Aduni stands at the bus stop, a small bag slung over her shoulder. She took one last look at the house, her heart swelling with a mix of relief and sorrow. Through the window of the bus, she watches as Oyin Village fades into the distance. The future awaits. Years later, a television screen flickers in a dimly lit room. Iyasiwa sits before it, her face worn with age. On the screen, Aduni stands in a graduation gown, smiling brightly. A heavy silence fills the room as regret settles deep in Iyasiwa's chest. Aduni, the girl she tried to break, has risen. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. And tell us in the comments what you would have done if you had been Aduni.